Hey, welcome to the 510th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Tyler, Richard Yeagley, Jack Powers, and John Slater. I'm Matt and Oren.
And I'm Oren Kaplan. Today we are talking about a couple different things. We're going to talk about meeting up with people for lunch and coffee and what that all entails and why you should or shouldn't do it. And we also have a good friend of the show, Eric Crepeau, back on the podcast. He was our very first editor.
And his name is Eric Crepeau.
You say, if you are a sound person and your last name is not Crepeau, I don't know what is wrong with you. But yes, Eric Crepeau, he edited episodes 17 to 60. I asked him if there were any highlights before you logged on. And he said that he always remembered the Melissa Hunter episode. She played young Wednesday Addams.
Maybe because you bring it all the time.
Me? I don't think I bring up.
You bring up Melissa's episode all the time, and Abby Fuller and Melissa Hunter.
What do I bring
Pitch
up
to
about?
Pitch?
No, that wasn't from her. That was Spencer Griffin.
Wait, no, there's something else from Melissa then.
Melissa
It'll come to
Hunter.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. She came back. She was on a couple times, right? Because she wrote She-Hulk too.
Mm-hmm.
But then he also mentioned Sam Reich. He's like, at the time, I didn't know who that guy is. And now he's a big deal. But
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize he was a big deal. Did you?
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
I heard him mentioned on The Town, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't heard. I'm a little behind.
Because I think they got a nomination for like a comedy special
Dropout got
on,
nominated?
yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
On Dropout, yeah. Like a comedy special on Dropout got nominated for an Emmy or something.
They've been doing Emmy-worthy stuff. You know what's really fun is like now young creative directors are into Dropout. Like multiple creatives are like, Dropout's my favorite thing.
Wow. Just goes to show you, if you just keep at it for long enough, people will eventually like you. That's why we're on our 510th episode.
Holding our breath.
And we're trying to get there. But Eric is going to talk to us about sound design, sound editing. He's at a company called Locked, L-O-C-K-T, doing audio post. He makes really cool stuff. I was telling you all about it yesterday, kind of those car commercials, the Nike commercials, the cool gadget commercials. Yeah, stuff where the sound really counts. And my favorite part, I don't know, I could sense like a potential eye roll from you. I couldn't really tell if you like to talk about it or not, but I just asked him if we could talk about some terms that are useful to know when speaking to sound designers. And
I liked the question, but I think the way you phrased it, you will do a thing where you will phrase a question a little strangely and then very clearly have expectations for what the way that you want someone to respond, but we're both kind of like unsure as to like what the question was exactly, in which case you give an example and then we go for it.
That sounds like a good interviewer skill. I never want people overly prepared.
And, criticizing podcasting techniques is really great podcasting. So,
Yeah. Speaking of criticizing podcasts, I recorded last night on the Commercial Directors podcast and he gave me every question ahead of time. And so he does a lightning round and he asks like, who are the directors that inspire you right now? And who are what are some of your favorite
nice
tools?
You mentioned me. It's really great. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I was like, there's only one director and I can't say his name or else it'll go to his head.
Yeah.
But then he does this kind of cool segment where he has every guest answer a question from the previous guest and leave a question for the next guest.
Oh, that's fun.
And that question I did not get ahead of time. And I just felt like it totally threw off my pacing because I was just like zinger, left, right, 1, 2, 3, explanation. And then I had to think for like 10 minutes. Can I tell you I won't tell you my answer. Can I tell you the question or is that a spoiler for his podcast?
Might be a spoiler, but sure, go for it.
Okay. I'm spoiling it. Sorry. He did steal a question from us. So I think it's okay if I spoil that episode. And you can only hear the answer if you listen to that episode. But the question was to tell us about a time you flipped out on set and why did it happen?
That's pretty good. That's really good.
Yeah. If I asked you that, would anything come to mind immediately?
Yeah.
Was it the time you threw up on everyone, on the whole crew?
I didn't throw up on the crew. I threw up in front of everyone, including 60 background. But no, that wasn't the one that
Never throw up in front of back. Come on.
No, I had a hard time with a union flip one time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I look back on it and I didn't behave poorly. It was all internal. I was like just seething, but I took it personally when I shouldn't have.
And to be clear, flipped out, I don't mean a union flip.
No, I know. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But that was like a very emotional experience. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, you got to tune into his podcast. He has no release dates and no cadence of releasing. So who knows when it'll come out, if ever. But if you do see Oren Kaplan on the Commercial Directors podcast, you will hear my answer to that question, and you will hear the question that I left for the next director, which I think is a pretty good question.
I should hope so. Well, Oren,
but not according to Matt. It's probably a confusing question.
I don't know. They won't know how to answer it is the problem.
Yeah. Well, before we get into our first quick topic, I did want to remind people that we have a Patreon, patreon.com/justshootitpod. It's where you can, throw a few bucks to us. It's been a little quiet recently. If you feel like, I don't know, it's weird. It's really hard to gauge how the podcast is doing because I think we're getting a lot of interactions on social media. But we don't know if those necessarily are from listeners or just people that are following us on social media and like to see little clips of film, or maybe are fans of our guests that have been on that have reposted our clips of their interviews. We've had such awesome interviews recently. But regardless, if you like what you hear, if you like these longer conversations, if you're, like our friend Tony at Bravemaker, and you sometimes get a chuckle out of something we might say on the podcast, then maybe go to patreon.com/justshootitpod and give us a buck or two to just kind of keep the podcast going, keep paying our editor, Kevin, and our social media maven, Lily. And yeah, anything else to add, Matt?
Let's hop into that topic.
So I was telling you that I had, we talk about this on the podcast all the time, which is that there is, I do think there's a season for people, especially cinematographers, reaching out to directors and saying, hey, let's grab a drink.
And when you say season,
I think the new year, January 1st, everyone's like, okay, 2026, I'm going to work.
Yeah. And there's not a ton of work to be had, so people start hustling. Yes.
Yeah, especially everyone's on break. And so they're like kind of trying to strategize for next year. And they
spent
DP
a bunch of money and like it's going to be slow. And yeah.
That meaning that they can get work by getting hired by directors. So it's helpful for them to meet directors, which is great. I think it's super smart. I think you should do that. I think you should reach out to directors and say, hey, let's do something. But just being on the other side of that relationship, as someone who has 2 young children, who has very few hours to themselves during the day and would love to spend time with their kids and family on the weekends and in the evenings, it's hard to devote, a 2-hour coffee break to someone that I don't know.
I'm going to say it one time just for everyone's posterity. I think that you are a curmudgeon about this. And you are right. All of the reasons are valid that you feel this way. But I think that generally speaking, DPs out there, like Oren is the extreme end of like, I don't want to go to coffee with you.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
You think if a DP that Dave Meyers has never met, or Mike Mills, or P.T. Anderson, or the Daniels, or Matt Enlow.
Sure. Or Matt Enlow. It's wonderful that you lumped me in with all of those people, but like you just named a bunch of name brand directors. I think that there is and neither you nor I is name brand in that way, right?
Well, we're only name brand to the people that are reaching out to us to have a coffee with us. They've heard of us and we don't know who they are.
There's a very big difference between me and Mike Mills.
Yes, in the grand scheme of things. But
in terms of stature, in terms of connections, in terms of representation, all of that stuff.
Right.
Like, we don't need to quibble, but like, I think there are lots of other directors who aren't household names who would be equally annoyed by your point, basically. Like, they don't have a ton of free time. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can name a million directors that maybe people outside of the commercial world wouldn't have heard of.
Right.
Like a Nick Ball or Ian Ponsjewel or a Freddie Powell or Kim Garrick, or, I don't know that those are household names for people outside of the commercial world, but I doubt those people are just going to randomly go grab coffee with like anyone that sends them a DM on Instagram.
Right. Absolutely. So let me ask you, I know how you find new DPs. I'll tell you the reason why I ever hire a DP that I haven't worked with before. And there's basically one reason, and it's different than yours. Would you like to know?
Yes.
It's because a producer made me, basically. Right? Like it's a blind date. It's matchmaking. They're like, hey, we work with this person all the time. Their camera package is included, or we run payroll through their company, or the agency really loves this person, or whatever. Like some producerial reason is the reason that I will hire a DP that I haven't worked with before. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's less great.
But otherwise you'll hire someone you have worked with before.
And that's because I have about 10 to 15 DPs that I really like working with. I could be booked solid and shoot with a different DP that I love and I've shot a bunch of times with and have like, like a nice, rapport with, and not shoot with the same person twice in a year pretty easily, I would say.
But I feel like you're kind of making my point for me, which is that there isn't like a ton of value for you to go spend 2 hours of your day having coffee with a new DP.
I'm not saying that it's more or less valuable. I'm saying that you're especially cranky about it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe I told my wife today, I was like, this is the rule. I will have coffee with you if you have young children, because I just want someone to value that free time like as much as I value it. And I'll get a lot of DPs that'll just text me like, hey, I've got Wednesday open. You want to go get a beer? And it's like, it's great that you have Wednesday open. Like,
do you get coffee with people?
I would get the coffees that I would be excited to get are either people that like friends that I'm catching up with, especially if, like on the business tip is filmmaker friends that we can commiserate with. Happy to talk to producers or editors that I work with. But honestly, no, I don't really get a lot of coffee with people. It's just not something I have a lot of time for. And I wanted to redo this email. I'm realizing now this was just sent to me. It wasn't a just shoot it email, but this is from a director. He says, hey, I'm originally from a different state. I've been in LA on and off for 12 years. I just finished a new feature I'm really proud of. And I found your Just Shoot It podcast and wondered if you'd be up for a coffee sometime soon. I'm a little curious about getting commercial work, which I've never really pursued. And I love connecting with other filmmakers in general. Here's my number. I'd love to connect.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, it's just, I don't know how to respond to these emails. And that's what I thought is interesting. And today I did have a DP reach out to me cold. He said, I've been following you forever on Instagram. I'd love to grab coffee. And I was like, look, I'm kind of busy. I'm going to have lunch at this place at Bodega Park at 12:30 p.m. on Tuesday. If you want to come have a sandwich with me, then you can. And but I looked at his work first, and his work is really good too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like step one, and then step two is like, is it going to work for my schedule? And then we had lunch, and I'm like, now what do we talk about? And and that's actually the topic that I was going to ask you about. It's let's say you've made it to that date. What's the conversation?
Let's put a moratorium on the topic of Oren hates having coffee dates.
Okay.
Right? Because I think that there were periods of time in your life where that's much more important. Development people have drinks with developing client all the time. Developing talent, I should say. Right? You're a screenwriter. You're a director. Like agents, managers. Hollywood is filled with a culture of let's do lunch. Right? And so people's time, like some people view that as work, and you view it less like work because you're full up with those relationships, right?
Yeah,
but also, if someone was like, "Hey, Oren, we're thinking of having you for a movie. Let's go grab lunch and talk about it," you would be like, "Oh, of course." Right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's a difference between you having lunch with someone that might hire you, or you might hire each other, and someone that wants you to hire them. I guess my thing is that, and I think it's just probably connected a lot to my age and the state of male adulthood in America, is that I just don't need to be friends with you to hire you to work on my production.
Right. So I think just to reduce us and simplify our two roles, you are happy to hire a DP whose work you admire and who you do not have a personal relationship with, right? Yeah. Let's put me in the other camp, right? Of like, I only hire my friends. I like every DP I shoot with. I want to like them, and I have a track history with all of them, basically at this point.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm happy to hire my friends also.
Sure,
but I do not want to invest money in making friends that I might hire later.
Yeah.
Especially if those friends are just in a very different place in their life than I am. I'm happy to hang out, like go on a play date with my kid and somebody else's kid. And their mom is a DP, and we're getting along well, and like, oh, let's work together. That's one thing. But if it's like, hey, I'm going to go on all these dates with new DPs that are 20 years younger than me.
So I think what you're highlighting, there's two things. There's two things that I think you're pointing at. One, it's that your social circle is already very full, right? Like for the first time in our lives in a while, all of a sudden we are surrounded by new people, oftentimes who are in the industry, right? Like if you go to my kid's birthday party, there are multiple showrunners at that party. We don't talk about.
I mean,
work.
like
we
talk about shows. So let's not overly brag.
You haven't Googled all my friends. But you know what I mean? Like the point is like, we're there to just like, we're meeting a lot of people and we can relate on Hollywood, but like, I'm not expecting any of them to give me a job. I'm expecting to like, go on a play date or like, give them a thoughtful birthday present or whatever it may be. So there's that. Your social circle is expanding for kind of the last time, right? Like in a person's normal cadence of life. Like maybe you retire and you like join a retirement community of some sort or something like that. But like, normally it's school and then it's work and then it's parenthood are the ways in which you get to know people that you wouldn't normally otherwise get to know. So you're full up that way. Also, you have a podcast. So once a week for 500 episodes, you've talked to a new filmmaker.
Which, by the way, the person I had lunch with today had no idea that I have a podcast. Even though I was wearing a Just Shoot It hat to our meal, and he only knows me from Instagram, right? That's a little weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I posted 2 podcast clips a week
for months. Yeah. I get worried that it's too much. I think you and I both have stopped accepting some of our...
I accept them all, but I remove them from the main grid.
Oh,
so they're
smart.
not on my grid, but they will appear in the feed.
Yeah.
And if I especially like one, I'll post it as a story.
All of which is to say that you're in a different place in your life. Let's move past that. What do you do when you are on a first date drinks with a potential collaborator? That could be a DP, that could be an editor, that could be a producer, right?
Well, let's go specifically into the DP, because I think to me there's like we can beat around the bush, or we can know like, hey, you wanted to meet because you
want work for me. Yeah.
Me to hire you for something.
Yeah.
So I guess what's valuable for me is like, hey, what other directors have you worked with? What companies have you worked with? Like, give me kind of a little bit of your resume so I know what your deal is. Did you go to film school? What kind of stuff do you like to shoot? And then how do you work, I guess? Like, do you prep a lot? I mean, obviously at this point, if I'm going to hire a new DP, it's someone that either has shot stuff that I'm a huge fan of, or is someone that is going to really help me a lot on set, is going to pre-vid stuff, is going to prep stuff, is going to do lens tests, is going to go above and beyond to impress me in the way that we go above and beyond to impress our clients, So it's hard to figure out how to pull that out of a lunch. I mean, and again, we've had a lot of episodes where we talk about how to make small talk. I don't think it's a problem talking about small talk and about how we love this sandwich place, or how the traffic is bad, or like the weather's been good. Like it's very easy for me to chit chat, but I don't want it to be like hours upon hours of hanging out. I want to be like, hey, you had a purpose in having this lunch date. Let's get to that purpose, But as a director, how do you bring that up? And then more importantly, how do you finish the conversation? For me, it was easy because I was like, I got a podcast to record at 2 p.m. I got to run, which is why I was very happy to schedule this today.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's hard. It's hard because really what you're chafing against is a lack of specificity. If you were looking to hire this person for any specific job, whether that's shooting our podcast, directing a commercial, directing your next feature, or photographing your kid's birthday party, you immediately have common ground to get into the nitty-gritty, and then you learn how they work, right, through that conversation.
Yeah. When I did Dial Body Wash, I went in a DP that had like a lot of beauty work, and I had 4 DPs on my short list. None of them I'd worked with before. So I had like an hour phone call with each one of them. And I literally asked them like, hey, have you shot people in showers before? What do you do? How do you do it? What was your favorite thing? One of the DPs I worked with had shot that movie, the new Predator movie. Badlands, yeah, and Prey, and so I love Terrence Malick. Dan Trachtenberg, and like we can geek out on that and all that stuff. Like you said, it was very easy to talk to them because the goal of this conversation is to know whether I should hire them for this job. That DP specifically was like, well, we might go back and shoot some more stuff, so I might not be available, which made it easy. But yeah, so it's the dating is tricky, and maybe I am being extra curmudgeon-y about it, but I also just feel bad because I want to think that if I emailed someone to have a meeting that they would respond to me. So I don't want to respond to people.
I think what you're really feeling bad about is that you don't have a good way of saying, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And the flip side also is that like, not only do you not want to do it, but you will hire them if the shoe fits. If you like their work and you have the right project for them, you'll hire them.
Yeah, I don't
which
need
is
to have lunch with
you don't
them.
need to have lunch with them. You don't care to. And I think the thing that's I've been thinking about while you've been talking is just how strange this work is. Because, I've talked about this on the show. I thought that filmmaking was going to be this kind of merry band of misfit, like a second family. And to a certain sense, that's true. If you're on a feature, there are people who feel like family, and then we all disperse. And maybe you see him again, and maybe that feeling is back, and maybe you see him again, and that's gone. Who knows? But like, especially those young days, it feels really, really special. And so it's really easy to conflate personal relationships with your career. And the older you get, the less important those feelings are, right? Because you're getting them from other places, and you know that it's ephemeral and all of that stuff. And so there's that. There's also, Oren, you are an engineer by trade. You're very analytical, you're very dry, you're very cut to the chase. And you do a good job between pitching and this podcast of knowing how to cut to the quick in a way that's entertaining and engaging and fun, but like down to business, right? And I keep thinking about DPs I know, directors I know who haven't practiced as much, haven't figured that out, maybe naturally are like a little quieter or a little bit more shy or whatever, who've had a harder time, frankly, articulating why they're the right person for the job. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you combine like this kind of this confusing thing where it's like, oh, it's all sort of personal relationships. So we should kind of just get to know each other and see if this will work, with a hunger, a need to get work. And also, less experience getting down to business. Right. And that I understand that that's frustrating to you. Right. I think that you should just write an email that's like, hey, you seem really cool. I keep a spreadsheet. I promise this is not me blowing you off. I'm slammed. I have young kids. Don't take this the wrong way. Just write a nice email that you can just keep in your notes app or whatever, and feel free to send it whenever you want. That's what I think you should do.
And just say, hey, I'm too busy, but your work is great. I'm going to put you on my list.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could figure out a way for you to say, and I really will call you if it's right. This isn't me blowing you off, because I know that you are not blowing them off if you think their work is good. And no one wants to hear, hey, your work's not good enough. You know what I mean? And that doesn't take a lunch either. But the opposite, it's rarely true. And I know that it is with you specifically. And frankly, it's not always true with me. Do you know what I mean? Like there's plenty of times where I'm like, I'm out of coffee and I'm wasting 2 hours of my day, and I am definitely not going to work with this person again. And that's not a good use of time. Also, people just want to like feel busy.
Yeah.
They want to feel like they're doing something to put food on the table or help their career or grow in some way.
I honestly can't think of a recent time that I remember you having a coffee with like a stranger, like a DP basically.
I do it less now. I do Zooms. I have coffees with strangers, but you know what the difference is, Oren? And maybe this is part of why I'm a little more sympathetic to it. I'm talking to reps all the time. I'm talking to different production companies. I've had a ton of coffees over the last year with different companies that I like, and maybe we could work with them. The roles are reversed, right? They're a company, right, that wants to talk to me. The difference is, and this is maybe the teachable moment in all of this, I am bringing something to the table that is of value to said companies. When I reach out to a company, my hit rate, I just did the math, it's like pretty high.
In terms of responses?
In terms of responses and meetings. In terms of responses, almost always a meeting, basically. And the reason is my reel's pretty good right now, right? And the DPs, your reels are good too, but I bring the opportunity for this company to book work that they are not currently booking based off of my reel. Like they will be like, hey, I saw this type of spot. We don't have a director who has those spots. We see these boards all the time. We would like to talk. That's the difference, right? And so whenever you're in any sort of matchmaking or first date territory, to be blunt about it, it's like, what value are you bringing to the table? And what you're saying, Oren, is that you know a lot of really great DPs. And so that is, the supply and demand is not in their favor.
Yeah. And also I'd rather get to know you as a DP first and as a friend later,
You don't want to get to know them as a DP either, Oren. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to like look at their reel real quick or whatever, but like, that's what you're saying is like,
you'll saying once we've worked together once or twice or 3 times,
then you can hang out. Right. Yeah, definitely.
But I don't want the pressure of me having to think about how to hire you on our first date,
I was joking about, kids' birthday parties or whatever, but the reverse is really tricky, right? Where people socially, and we moved to Los Angeles to know people socially. And it's been true for 20 years. We know people who are really good at certain things. And there's a little bit of something in the air sometimes of it would be nice if you gave me a call. And I don't want to be that person. And I hate the flip as well.
Yeah. No, we definitely, there's parents at our school and stuff where I'm like, God, I wish my kids were better friends with their kids. So we'd have an excuse to hang out,
Sure.
Yeah. It's funny. The writer-directors of that new movie Anaconda, the Jack Black, their kid is in school with my daughter. And I'm always like, what? I'm always asking my daughter, I'm like, you don't want to be friends with this kid?
How?
Want to hang out or?
They seem pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, he made fun of me. I'm like, that's part of life, okay?
That's because their dad is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Professionally.
But it is. Yeah. But obviously I'd never be like, hey, we should just grab coffee, unless it felt organic and natural. I'd never. And then especially someone that you're going to be seeing for the next few years, right?
So, let me ask you this then, Oren. Say you're out of work, right? And the pressure it feels a little bit different. You say you don't have kids, say your expenses are lower. So you're out of work, but it's not panic mode. It's not, you're fine for a while, but you've still got that anxiety of I should get things going. What do I do? What would you do in their shoes?
Well, so I guess just to go back, I don't think it's bad to ask. I'm just stressed out about how to answer it, but I would probably try to post work, show people stuff. You're really good at LinkedIn, Matt, and you've cracked the code, and your code is ask for nothing,
Yeah, it's two things though, actually. And this is, you're going to be annoyed by the results of the other part of it. So it's ask for nothing, right? Come to the table with something, ask for nothing. That's totally true. The other thing you need to do is get over being embarrassed. So everyone who's listening at home and is just cringing at the thought of oh God, I thought I might email Oren. Maybe we should catch up or hang out or grab a coffee or work in some way. Do that 1,000 times. Do that to me. Do that to Oren. Do that to every single person on the art class roster. Do that to every single person on the stepped roster. Do that to everybody. And then some of us will say yes. And Oren will forget about the email that he ignored. That's part of it. And I'm not saying spam. You have to be thoughtful, but get over the fear of what Oren is doing right now.
Oh yeah, going on a podcast and complaining to everyone about you.
Yeah, not to make you the villain, Oren, but
no, I am the villain.
Literally, this is the worst thing that could happen, right?
No. Well, yes. You're saying that it's not that bad. That the worst.
It's not that bad. What could be worse, right?
Yeah, I got this email yesterday from a DP that was talking about how he's such a fan of my comedic style and connecting, trying to connect with me on various personal levels and stuff of things we have in common. But then he was like, your favorite piece of work that you made my favorite piece of work that you made is this Jimmy O Yang boneless wing denier video.
You hate it.
It's I'm also a boneless denier. It just feels it's not that I hate it. I told you I like it. It's on my website. Yeah. It's a fine spot, but it's I don't know, when you're it's if you came to Steven Spielberg and you're you're my favorite director. I love you. You're so good. My favorite movie you've ever directed is
AI
or Fableman. So I don't know.
AI is my favorite.
No, it's not. Come on.
I love AI.
Well, maybe Spielberg was a bad example. But
here's the thing. Is he really a wing denier? That's the real question. Because I truly love AI and could talk about it to Steven Spielberg forever. But if I wasn't, it wouldn't be cool to try and pull a deep cut to impress him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, maybe what you're hinting at.
I'm hinting at it at the attempt to be super specific and authentic and connect. Either it's inauthentic, either it's false, or our tastes are just different, that's my favorite spot of yours, means maybe, it's especially from a cinematographer, I hate the wardrobe on that spot. I feel like the colors palette is really kind of lacking there. It's all orange and white. So, it's those things. But anyhow, I don't know. I think I've complained about this enough. I'm a big enough villain. We have a lot of fun chatter we did with Eric Crepeau, nay Crepeau, that we should probably get to. So but I do think you're right about your tip, which is don't be embarrassed, reach out to people and
and be maybe thoughtful about the way the ask, right? That's really what you're getting at. It's not that you're mad that they reached out. It's that you don't want to go get a coffee. Like you don't have the time to go get a coffee. Yeah.
The way that you recommend, which is like, hey, how's it going, Oren? I'm a fan of your work. Here's some stuff I worked on. Maybe if I ever feel right to you for something, I'd love to have the opportunity to be in the running or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'll be like, great. I love this spot of yours. This is great. Great. Thanks for putting yourself on my radar. That's like how I would like that interaction to end, and not with me feeling guilty about not having coffee.
Not driving to the West Side and spending $7 on matcha or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would never drive to the West Side.
No, I don't go west of the 405. Anyhow, let's talk to Eric Crepeau.
How many episodes do you think you did?
I edited episodes 17 through 60.
Definitely our gateway drug. Definitely us realizing, we can do this show if we get help, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I remember I cut a lot of those episodes from a laundromat on my ancient MacBook Pro.
Is that why? I felt like there was a little clicking, like a rhythmic.
Yeah, exactly.
Ka-dunk.
It adds to the texture.
You have a lot of laundry, I guess. It is interesting because I do think the only way you can make a podcast, do something for as long as Matt and I have been doing it, is if you have an editor. If you detach the packaging and releasing of the product from the making of the emotional
100%.
Investment in the product.
100%. Yeah.
Hopefully there's an illusion that we don't really edit much, but
I think people get it at this point though. Enough podcasts talk about it. Everyone knows that podcast.
Yeah. I wonder if Smart Lists and those and Joe Rogan and stuff are super edited.
Of course they are.
Yeah. No, I have there's a podcast I listen to. It's a couple of video game developers, and they are very clearly not edited because just ramble.
Can you get an editor?
But yeah. So, and now you tell us what you do now.
Yeah. So now I am the lead sound designer at Locked. So I head up the audio department here, and we do sound design and mixing for commercials and films.
And it's locked with a T, correct?
It is, in fact, locked with a T.
And remind me, are you related to any other companies as well? Is there a sister company?
So Locked is the post division of Stepped Studios.
Yes.
And how do you spell Stepped?
Stepped is step with a T. STEPT.
Yeah. I wish it was founded by a guy named Ed, who was just no.
I'm not doing this.
Yeah, he's mad he got named Ed. Anyway, well, Eric, you were listening to the show.
Yeah.
God bless you. And you reached out because we were talking a little bit about the nature of sound design. And Oren, you're much more integrated into sound design than I am. It's definitely my weak spot. I would say of all the film disciplines, sound design is the thing that I would like to work on the most.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say I'm more plugged in. I get more enraged when I watch stuff on Instagram that's from Stepped/Locked. And it has incredible sound design. And I know I was telling Matt,
why?
That Eric, you do a lot of stuff where it's like a car whooshing by.
Yeah.
Where the spot is the sound design. And I'm like, why does none of my stuff ever
sound like that? Yeah.
I don't really work with creatives that think about sound as the engine to push story and narrative. And that's what I was curious to talk to you a little bit about today, Eric, is do you find that you ever get projects where sound isn't really a big part and then you make it a big part? Or do you find that the best jobs from your point of view have sound written into the script from step one?
Definitely the latter is the preference. Stepped has always been really good, even before I came on board, about thinking about sound design during the edit. And all of our editors do really good temp sound design, which is great even if I don't use the actual sounds that they used, because it means that they are leaving spots in the edit to showcase sound design.
The timing of sound design. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so that definitely makes it a lot easier on my end to punch it up a little bit more. But yeah, there definitely have been projects where I'll get something in and I'll be like, I think I could do something pretty cool with this that maybe is not, I haven't been directly asked to do. And, I'll give it a shot and I'll go to town on it. And either it'll work and people will be like, this is super cool. Or they'll be like, I'm sorry, what is this? What are you doing?
Yeah.
I will say my big pet peeve with editors, I work with a lot of different editors, and when they don't do any sound pass, and I'm like, hey, there's a gunshot here. The door slams like this. And they're like, yeah, but I'm just doing the picture cut. And you're like, dude, what? The picture cut and the sound cut are the same thing. Like,
yeah. Oren, I'll push back. I 100% agree that like the picture cut and the sound cut have to be the same, but like no one would ever leave out, say, a gunshot in
a gunshot is kind of an exaggeration, but sometimes like footsteps to build up tension. In comedy, I find that the best comedy editors are really good at sound. They know that like, a breath makes a big difference. A chair squeak, a lamp click. The rhythm of the comedy is based on some sounds, and you can tell when
the obvious is like that's missing the dry cough, right? You cut wide, everyone's looking at you.
But like the wide doesn't work if you don't do the dry cough.
Sure, right.
Or even from like a sound design perspective, if it is more of like a kind of fast action dynamic camera type of piece, you want the like suck down, the reverb, the riser, the flame whoosh, something to make something land.
In trouble if you don't like in even like a comedy, if you don't leave the space for those things, like it can tie the sound team's hands on the back end because they could have an idea that they don't have a spot for potentially. It happens all the time.
It would be really great if we had room for a wolf to howl at the moon, but you were only on for 4 frames, and I need 8 or whatever. That's a fast cut, obviously. Oren, I love the passion that you bring to this argument. I'm kind of the flip side, right? Where I think that there are a lot of great editors who are thoughtful about putting in sounds and are like kind of pre-mixing them. And, I'm always encouraging them to like add all of those little flourishes that you're talking about. And then because of my aforementioned lack of skill, for lack of a better term, I don't think that deeply. And so like, then I'm like, okay, well, we're done. This is mixed. These are the sounds that I want. And then we hand it over to a guy like Eric, and one of two things happens.
Yep.
Either it's awesome, that's the best case scenario, or I'm like, whoa, back it off.
Yeah.
You come in, you roll up your sleeves, you're going to plus it like crazy. And I'm like, no, I liked it that way. I fell in love with the sounds that we used and the timing and all of that stuff. And I'm like, well, what are we even doing?
One of my favorite questions to ask somebody when I'm starting on a project is like, how much of the temp sound, like how far along do you feel like the temp sound is? Do you feel like it's at like 70%? Do you feel like it's at 100%? Or are you like, no, please don't use any of this. Like, this was just temp, like delete it all, And so I think like anytime you're getting started with the post sound process, that is like one of the most important things to be on board with, because I have clients that go either way. I have clients that are like, just do some really quick mixing on this and don't touch the temp sound. Then I have clients that are like, go to town, do literally whatever you want and everything in between. So like, that's a really important thing to be on the same page about.
It's funny. I thought you were going to say that when you said either one of two things happens, I thought you were going to say two different things. I thought you were going to say either it comes back and it's got all these cool additional sounds and effects and reverbs and mixes and EQs, or it just comes back sounding exactly the same as what we sent.
Sure.
Which to me is, it's hard because I do think a lot about
honestly, two versions of, that's the same thing that I just said in a slightly different way. And it's really about your opinion of whether that's good or bad. Right?
Well, and it depends on the project, right? There are projects in which that's a helpful thing and projects where that's not a helpful thing for sure.
I guess it's funny because I do push the sound design a lot in the cut that we send this to the sound mixer. And so I do think most mixers are like, okay, well, looks like they left me no room to play and we'll just give them back the well-mixed version of that. But I'm always like, I want everyone to be adding something to the spot,
Yeah.
So I'm largely disappointed by sound mixes because I'll literally be asked the post supervisor, like, are we listening to the mix or is this what we sent them? I find that a lot of times I don't know because it's a lot of it is just like a levels thing,
And Eric, you tell us, but I imagine you've been burnt a handful of times where you go, you do change things out and you do improve things and all of a sudden people are upset. So like, are you kind of taught to like, just stick with what you've got unless you're given explicit free reign? Or
I'm pretty lucky here in that because, again, even before I joined the company, there was like some amount of reputation for sound design at Steps. Like people are more likely to let me just go to town on it. Whereas in a lot of places in the industry, that's not the case. Like everybody really, if you're a commercial sound mixing house, like a lot of times the expectation is that you're just going to like take what you get and do a quick pass on it and turn it back around. But yeah, I've definitely been burned on that a number of times. It definitely happens. And so anytime I do take a big swing like that, I do try to like communicate it ahead of time, like figure out whether that is actually what they want or not. And then if I do take a big swing on that and people don't like it, which has definitely happened a number of times, then I just have to be okay with going back to the drawing board and being like, all right, delete it all.
It's commercials, baby. Yeah.
just do what they said. And, I have no problem with that. That is, it's their project. So,
well, and I'm sure there's a lot of temp love too that you're dealing with.
Definitely happens for sure. And, that happens in every aspect of commercials.
In this conversation, I'm realizing some of my bias comes from the fact that as like a comedy dialogue director, things are almost always literally wall-to-wall dialogue.
Yes.
And so there's not a ton of room for that sort of work. However, Stepped has some great comedy directors on the roster, but also like when I think of Stepped, I think of a lot of like lifestyle, sports, cars, stuff where people aren't just like making jokes and, asking about the product or whatever.
A lot of big action sports type stuff.
Or even the comedy directors like Adam Patch and Varsity and stuff. They do a lot of kind of stylized.
It's sparse. Yeah. Varsity, I think those guys are doing incredible work.
I love them.
So awesome. But like,
I think they're just fine, and I'm okay if they win a job or two over me. Yeah. Whatever, no big deal.
I mean, they're less than, but no disrespect. But to your point though, Oren, I think that they are doing stuff that gives that room to breathe, right? Like it's all kind of in that space. Whereas,
although it even on the comedy dialogue stuff, like, obviously like it's way less of like free reign sound design, but it can be really fun to just figure out like, can you just put like one chair creak here and that plushes the joke by just like 2%, like that kind of puzzle solving can be really fun too.
So talk to us about your approach to something that is kind of wall-to-wall sound design, and what are the other things that maybe we wouldn't see coming?
Yeah. So for a project like that, the thing that I'm really thinking about the most is kind of like, what is the overall rhythm of the whole spot? Like if I were to think of this whole spot as like a piece of music, like where would the climax be and like where would the introduction be and like all of that kind of stuff? How do I give like an overall shape to the whole thing? That tends to be what I think about for like 30-second spots and stuff like that.
And so tangibly, how does that manifest itself, right? Like, is that volume? Is that the quantity of sound effects? Is that sonics where they weren't there, things like that before?
It's really like I try to make it so that each sound is like leading into the next sound and like drawing you forward, almost like, I came from movie trailers.
Crossfade.
It's called a crossfade. Have you heard of it? No, but like I worked in movie trailers for a while, and those are kind of notorious for just constantly having risers going like all the time to like draw the audience up to like the one big climactic beat. And then there's like, there's a button and you're out. I kind of internalized that in some ways. And so I'm really like, I'm constantly like building up to the next sound and, something that I see like early sound editors do is they're not thinking about that kind of rhythm. They're just sound designing each shot by itself. But like in a commercial, you really want to figure out how can I blend all of these shots together and like impose maybe a rhythm or a meaning on them that wasn't even there to begin with.
Yeah. Or where do you find the quiet moments too, right?
And exactly, how can you build contrast so that you're building up to a really loud moment and then you're going to a really quiet moment? Like all that's kind of the coolest stuff you can do a lot of the time. I do a lot of car commercials and, when you can like suck all of the sound out right before a big engine roar, like that can make things really exciting. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about sound. And that's where I'm not good at sound is my general approach is more. I'm like, oh, this impact doesn't feel big enough. Let me add another like little explosion, and let me add a tire screech, and let me
Oren's
add
timeline is 75 tracks tall.
Yeah. And then you're like, wait, but for some reason I liked each one of these sound effects on its own, but when I put them all together, it sounds like.
Well, this is something that it took me years to learn, which is that the way to get sounds to layer is to separate them by time as well, like to give each sound its own little moment in time. So like, if you cut in a distant engine of a car approaching you, and then you cut the tire screech and you kill the engine, and then you cut the whoosh and you kill the tire screech. Your audience's brain will just like imagine that all those things were going all at once, but you can draw their attention to one at a time.
And when we're talking about this, how quickly are we shifting gears, pun intended, between those sounds, right? Are you talking, is this a matter of a frame or two? Is it is it a beat, or is it more subliminal than that?
I try to think of things in terms of beats. Typically when I get a commercial that is like really cutty and has a lot and is just, like 1,000 cuts a second, my goal is actually to almost slow that edit down a little bit and to use sound to blend shots together and create beats out of like 2 or 3 shots, so that,
Awesome.
you can kind of impose some like extra rhythm and meaning on it for the audience.
I love that so much. And no, I think it's really a wonderful, brilliant nugget, and not something that had really occurred to me before. And kind of goes back to that initial frustration that I had of like, I wouldn't allow, say, 3 super fast cuts to happen if they didn't feel cohesive, because we didn't have the sound design there in the edit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard. It's that chicken and the egg of like, you have to have an editor, to Oren's point, that has the foresight to like temp that in so that it all kind of makes sense together in the first place. Otherwise, it just doesn't make it to the locked cut, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in trailers, you're editing sound and picture kind of at the same time, right?
Yeah, you typically are. So when I was doing trailers, I was doing picture editing and I was doing all the sound design and mixing for those trailers, because it was just, we were a small little team. But that was a really interesting education in how to get those two things to speak to each other, for sure.
Yeah, if you want to learn the most you can about sound design fast, like take a trailer editing course. The most I've ever learned about sound is from Blake Benham at Sawhorse, who came from a trailer editing background. And I just saw him turn, a series of disconnected shots into like a story.
Yeah.
Just through, he's like, and he was a drummer before he was an editor, and just through beats of, and then he's like, and he's the one that taught me, and probably everybody knows this, but at the time I didn't know that trailers have acts, it's like the first act is about the introduction and everything's, cool. And these beautiful people are running around the forest and they're doing these cute things to each other. And there's the meet cute or whatever. And then the monster comes, second act, it's like, and now it's getting scary a little bit. And now we're going to use like the instrument from the first act that was kind of whimsical, but now we're going to pace it double time in the third act. And now everything's coming together, and it's like storytelling through sound design. And the shots are almost become secondary to some of that,
Yeah, no, it is really like a really unique way of thinking that I think has helped me a lot going into commercials, for sure.
Eric, off mic, we were talking about maybe some other things that directors might not be aware of, or even you wish they were aware of or wish they knew. Do you have a hit list for us? What was on your mind there?
Yeah. One thing to me is like, it's really helpful when you understand that the audience I like to say the audience can only hear like 2.5 things at once. So like, you can hear if you have a line of dialogue or voiceover, and you can hear some music under that. And then if you want a sound effect under that, you can maybe have a tiny little whisper of a sound effect. But like you can't play all 3 of those things at once and have them land. So, one thing I see a lot is if you want to have the big shot of the car going by and you want to hear the nice like throaty exhaust note as it goes by, don't put a line of dialogue over that moment, like, and people do that all the time, like, right. Because they want, the line of dialogue to culminate at like the apex of the spot. But if you want to hear the sound effects, like you need to give it its own breathing room and you need to give it its own beat. Like think about, if you want to hear something, give it a visual beat that allows us to hear it.
Right. I always think of the sound effect being like a line of dialogue. Like, if you see, like you said, that big throaty exhaust as the car comes by and it's a Mazda commercial and you want them to say vroom, vroom, like it's so much better if it's vroom. Vroom, 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 and the vroom all happening at the same time.
100%. You get the best result when you think about at each given moment, do I want the audience to hear a line of dialogue? Do I want them to hear a big moment of music, or do I want them to hear a big sound effect? Like you can kind of only have one of those at a time.
Right. And you should think of it like musically too, that those 3 things are working, and whether the music, the sound effects, design, and then dialogue
Yeah, they should all be
part of
informing
the same
each other.
song.
Yeah. The other one that I notice a lot talking to like creative people and directors is a lot of people feel really intimidated talking about sound, and they feel like worried that they're going to come across as sounding dumb because they don't know like the technical lingo.
Sure.
For me, like any other, collaborator, like I just want to talk about the story. Like I just want you to pitch me like where did this spot come from, and like what is your elevator pitch for like what it's trying to accomplish, and then I can use that to try to help you.
You are the vessel. Yeah.
That's an interesting take. DPs a lot of times do that too, where you're like, can you make it brighter? And they're like, what's the intention? Why do you want it to be brighter?
They're like, yes, I can, but I would prefer to just
And
I may have been guilty of that once or twice.
Change the contrast, maybe. Eric, I think that makes a ton of sense. Because you're in post in commercials, I imagine that you're kind of bouncing back and forth between creative directors and like agency people, basically, and film people, like directors. Probably more agency people. You spend more time with agency people than you do directors.
Generally.
Do you feel that some of that apprehension comes from the agency people, or do you, tell us about the difference between it, right? Because it's occurring to me that I don't get to be there for all of it,
Yeah, I've seen it from both ways. So at Steps, we do work with agencies, but we'll also do direct to brand sometimes. So sometimes I will be working directly with brand people or directors and stuff like that. But yes, a lot of the agencies do tend to be more skittish about talking about like how to communicate about sound.
But
and
what
so,
do you think, sorry, as a public service, and I'm very much going to put you on the spot here, but can you give us 10 words
okay,
that, and it doesn't have to be exactly 10, but that are useful to know when you're talking to a sound designer, sound engineer?
Yeah, that's actually a great question because I see people struggle with some of this stuff a lot.
And I'm happy to throw out some words too. I'm sure Matt can also.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Actually, what are some things that you want to tell your sound people, but can't find the words to tell them?
Well, I do. I feel like I am pretty good at talking about sound, and there's the words that I use a lot are like a riser, which is referring to a sound that is getting louder and louder and leading us to a moment.
Yep.
I use a very specific sound effect I talk about on the podcast called the FX swish hit, which is kind of like a whoosh, like something that deflates the moment and kind of gives you a little bit of a way out of like either a joke or a punchline or a door slam or a pivotal moment.
I've got a couple actually that, Eric, I bet you have a better word for, but sometimes I'll say like subliminal. And I think that's oftentimes like a word for like sonics, right? Like it's that's trailer language where it's not meant to feel like it's in the scene in any way, but it's meant to feel like your subconscious is sort of like what that sounds like.
Is that like a bassy, like a frequency thing? Or it's like an undertone type?
Undertones, risers, like all of those things that aren't in the real world.
Yeah.
But we understand the language of.
That's actually one where there's not like a super accepted one word, but I call those synthetic sounds a lot, or we'll call them non-diegetic, or we'll call them
diegetic is a great word that hopefully everyone knows, but people don't, especially agency folks.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Or we'll just call them like stylized sounds sometimes.
Diegetic, in case you don't know, which is, to me, diegetic means a sound that comes from something inside the scene. Radio, music playing on the radio, or a footstep.
Right. So the difference between score and diegetic music is like, does it sound like it's coming out of that turntable? Does it sound like it's coming out of a car, or does it sound like it's coming from
the editor? Yeah, coming from
movie. Yeah,
from nowhere.
Yeah. So synthetic, I like that. I think that also like there's like a version of the stepsister to that sort of style of sound design is like the more biological stuff, heartbeats, ears ringing, that stuff. That's still kind of, it's much more grounded, but not necessarily meant to feel like ears ringing is the easy example.
It's like coming from someone's
whose heartbeat do we hear? Yeah.
It's like, this isn't maybe super helpful, but I tend to call those like subjective sounds. Like, is this from this one person's subjective experience?
Like a POV.
Yeah, like POV, exactly.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between a swish and a whoosh?
a swish and a whoosh. That is hotly debated depending on who you ask. I think
an S or a W.
Exactly. No, for me, a swish is smaller than a whoosh. Probably like a swish is
It's like
a bigger like
the
trailer.
sword of the six-fingered man, Inigo Montoya.
Exactly.
I think they're higher.
I agree.
A swish is a sword. A whoosh is a golf club.
Or even like my favorite is a cloth whoosh.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it has weight to it.
Okay.
And there's the bassy whooshes too. Like a spaceship flying by you.
You know what's one that I've never really been able to put my finger on is like specifically in The Amazing Race and Survivor, they will do like cymbal rolls and like gongs that are now the language of the show.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's like trying to solve a puzzle or whatever, and like the piece that they need to find is right behind them, and the camera, they're like, oh, man, I can't find that last piece, and the cameraman just subtly like pans to it being like underfoot or whatever. You would hear like a or something like that.
Yeah.
And in
reality
reality
has its whole language.
I always want to steal those, and I'll talk to reality editors, and I'll be like, you know what I'm talking about, and I'll try to explain that, and it's just blank stares. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
Yeah. And some of them are like those weird,
snary.
like there's that musical instrument, Eric, you might know it, like that kind of sounds like piano strings that they use in horror movies. Like there's
I think that's, you're probably talking about the waterphone.
Probably. Yeah.
Not
totally.
a theremin.
Not a theremin. Theremin, I know that's nice and clear, but like there's that family of musical instruments that aren't in contemporary music much, but we ascribe feelings.
We use
to.
them in movies and reality shows all over the place.
Yeah.
Also, like another sound word that I think every sound person knows, but maybe a normal person wouldn't know, is like a by, which I call it. Like when
something pass by. Yeah.
Passes, flies.
Yeah.
It's like a car by or plane by or
I see.
person by. Just just something. It's like a whoosh, but it has more weight to it.
Like a drive by, like a vroom.
Yeah.
Another one that I think is helpful for people is high pass or low pass. You're like, hey, can you low pass that sound? Which means to take out all the high frequencies, leaving only the low frequencies to pass, so that it gets more muffled.
The low sounds pass.
Correct. Yeah.
In the low pass, the low sounds pass.
Yes. Yeah.
And then in a high pass, the high sounds pass. And so, when you're trying to tell a sound editor, like, hey, I need you to change this sound in a way, you can tell them, hey, could you maybe try low passing that? Or could you bring out the lower frequencies? Or a really good one is darker or brighter. You're like, I want this sound to be darker. That kind of means let's bring in some more low frequencies, or brighter, bring in some more high frequencies.
And isn't there wet and dry? Like when you talk about mixes?
There is. That's like if you're applying
about.
An effect to something, if you're hearing only the output of the effect, that's totally wet. If you're hearing only the original sound, that's totally dry.
So if it's reverb, let's say.
Exactly. Reverb is the classic example.
And it's like really reverby, that would be too wet.
Yes.
Whereas the raw would be dry. Okay, great.
Yeah. Could we make that, could we make that, like bring that more towards the dry a little bit, Yeah.
And my last technical question was going to be about like voiceover, and how do you make like a voice cut through the mix,
A few things. So on my end, I'll put an EQ curve on it. I'll take out some of the kind of muddy mid-low frequencies or whichever ones based on the voice. I'll put a compressor on it so that it, you're not just hearing the loud syllables spike through. It kind of makes the whole thing at kind of a consistent volume. And then it's really just about ducking the music and sound effects under it at any moment. Like the same, like you can only hear 2.5 things rule applies. Like anytime voiceover comes on, like everything else has got to go, like I'm pretty ruthless about like getting rid of everything else under the voiceover and making sure only one thing plays at a time.
Yeah. I learned this when I worked at Break Media. They had this like guide for how to mix dialogue and music. And they would say like if you have music playing and then dialogue starts, you can lower the levels of the music really fast. Within like 2 frames, you can go down like 12 dB. But once the dialogue ends, you got to slowly bring the music back in.
Although it also is like to taste based on who you're working with. Like so many people have told me, hey, can the music's getting dropped out too fast here, or the music's getting dropped out too slow here, and
how long do you typically take to like let the music come back? Are we talking 6 frames? Are we talking 12 frames?
Probably more like 12.
Yeah.
But also as I've done this longer, I've in more instances oh, there's actually a music beat coming. Let's use that as the excuse to bring the music back, rather than just do it to the rhythm of dialogue.
I will say one other word that I find useful for myself, and that I bet a lot of filmmakers don't know, is like, what if you use the word compressor and what it does? And it's like, it's kind of like one of the main tools of the sound designer. And it's the name of it makes it sound like maybe it makes audio quieter, which it ultimately does.
But
it's always combined with like a gain of the level. So instead of having dialogue that's like really quiet, and then it gets like really loud, and then it's like quiet again.
You're compressing the distance between the two.
Correct.
Right.
You're compressing the loud stuff so that everything gets quieter, and then you're bringing it all back up. So it's all at the same level. And then that gives it the effect that it is louder because everything is at similar levels.
So with voiceover, and you want it to kind of sit on top of the visuals as opposed to the people in the scene that are like, they're farther from the camera. They might be a little quieter. They're whispering. Yeah. It's nice to use that as a tool to get your dialogue to sound really consistent and loud.
100%. And it's one thing where like films and commercials are so different because, you have a lot of people, dialogue editors in film, who really want to let the dialogue be natural and hear the natural, cadence and rhythm of a person's voice. And then you get into a commercial where you have 100 layers of sound happening at once, and you just need to hear what they are saying and get everything really punchy. Like you process the crap out of that stuff, You compress it, you do a more drastic EQ curve, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, some good stuff. I'm really curious what our listeners think, if this is like helpful. Obviously it's like very technical, but I love this stuff. And I had Eric hooked me up. He mixed a director's cut for me a few months ago, that Pringles baseball spot. And I was like, and just see all his work posted on Instagram. And I'm like, man, that was one of the spots where I was like, I feel like this could just be better if the sound is just like, is just doing some more work for us. And
that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of like to what I was saying earlier, like you had a lot of spots in that director's cut that were like that, were ready for like some cool sound design on them. So it was a great time.
Cool. Well, yeah. So if people want to find you, what's the move?
I'm on Instagram at ericcrepeau.wave. And then my website is
pretty good. It's pretty good.
My website is ericcrepeau.com, and then you can find Locked at lockededitorial.com.
Cool. And Crepeau is Crepeau.
Yes. Thank you, Oren.
Yeah, and Locked LOCKT.
Yeah.
Speaking of sound notes, can you guys hear the lawnmower? I think it's the leaf blower. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's not bad. Not like
no.
I just assumed Eric added that just for some
just to kind of like add a little oomph to it. That's great. Awesome. Well, Eric, this was a treat.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This is a great time.
Should we go out on the special little gift you sent us in advance of this conversation?
Can you tell us? Can you set up the clip for us?
Yeah. So, in preparing to go on the show here, I went through some of my old hard drives, looking at my old Just Shoot It editing episodes, and realized that I had been keeping little clips of Matt and Oren asking me to cut certain parts out of the podcast from every single episode. So I decided to just put together a little edit of all those pieces.
Awesome. And let's play it right now.
Cut that part out. Eric, cut this part out. Eric, cut that part out. Eric, cut this part out, please. Eric, you can get this part out. Cut that part out, Eric.
Wow.
Eric, cut that part down a little bit.
Cut that part out.
Eric, cut this out. Eric, cut this part out. Cut this part out, Eric. We can cut that part out. Cut this out, Eric. You can cut this part out, Eric. Actually, Eric, maybe cut that out.
Anyway, Eric, I guess cut that out. So, Eric, I guess you can cut out everything from when I introduced this segment to right now.
Eric, cut out everything I just said. Cut this part out. Cut that part out.
I think you can obviously cut all this stuff out.
Cut this part out. Here's a funny little fact that I think listeners won't be interested in at all. So maybe cut it out, Eric. Cut it out. Cut this part out. Cut that part out, Eric. Cut this part out, Eric.
Eric, you can delete all this. Obviously, delete all
Eric,
this
you could
stuff.
cut this out. Speaking of things we'll cut out, Eric. Cut that part out. Hey, Eric, I would say probably you could cut a decent amount of that, right?
You can cut back in, Eric. Wow. Well, that was a lot of stuff we wanted to cut out. It's probably a lot of your inappropriate NSFW talk that I kept telling.
All the
Eric
slurs, the like weird passes I make at everyone. It's a really inappropriate.
If we had an HR department, you'd be so busted.
That's right.
With all of your microaggressions against me. Well, before we say goodbye to everyone, do you have a minute to do an unpaid endorsement with me?
I do actually.
Unpaid endorsements.
Oren, are you familiar with the Battery Daddy?
I've seen. Are there Instagram ads for that thing?
It was at Home Depot. There might be Instagram ads. There might be Instagram ads for it, but it's not the first battery case out there. For people who aren't watching, a Battery Daddy is just a plastic case
box of
batteries, but it's got slots for all the different shapes and sizes, and it comes with a built-in tester.
Can you show me the box again? I'm curious. Does it have the LICB, those little ones that you put in some of those tiny toys?
Actually, I don't think so. It's got the CR2s, which are sometimes for
like watches or things like that, or flashlights.
This one's it's even bigger than that. There's a little case down here, so that's where I put those, and then it's got a back slot for a bunch of AA's and then more AA's. It's really for your C's, D's, AAA's, AA's.
I will say I haven't seen much D battery usage lately.
Yeah, that's true, because thanks to LEDs.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just a case for your batteries, and it has a built-in tester, because sometimes I'll find loose batteries and I'll be like, are these good or not? And then I know.
It's great. It's a good one. Make a good case for it.
My other endorsement is even more emphatic than the Battery Daddy. And that is, I got myself a new suitcase. I got the Away travel suitcase with a backpack as well. It doesn't have to be an Away backpack, though I really like mine as well. I got the day pack, not the full big one. I don't like a big bulky backpack, but I do like thoughtful pouches and zippers for all of the stuff that you need. The day bag has like a slot for your passport. It has, stuff for your key, all the little nicks and knacks and all of that stuff that I like. But the most important, the game changer, and I'm sure if you travel a lot, you already know this, but I was slow to the uptick. It has the little sleeve, the little like loop that's flat against the back that's designed specifically to go into the handle of your suitcase. So if you've got an upright suitcase and you can slide your backpack on and it's centered perfectly on top of it.
Yeah, and you're rolling suitcase.
You're rolling suitcase, so you can go hands-free. You don't need to hold anything and you don't have to be encumbered in any way. I know people at home are like, yeah, dude, welcome to 2026. But having it all together and feel cohesive was great. I was a duffel bag guy for a long time. I have endorsed an LL Bean duffel bag that I thought was going to be my forever bag. But the combo of the rolly suitcase with backpack, all in one cohesive, it was very nice.
This is not like a Black Friday deal or on sale or anything. Those Away bags are pretty pricey, right?
They're pricey. I did get I got it, I want to say like on one of those sales, one of like Memorial Day or Labor Day, or like sometimes, those kind of weird mattress sales days. I got it on during one of those, and had used it a couple times, but this last trip, it really clicked for me specifically because I was flying alone. I didn't have to check anything. I was footloose and fancy free. It felt very liberating.
Interesting. Yeah, I know people love those Away bags. We always get ours at like Marshalls,
Yes, and I was that person too. Because you're like, oh, why would I ever pay full price for these bags?
It's like $40 instead of $400.
I got the smaller
for something
one.
that gets beat up.
Something that gets beat up. I'm okay aesthetically if something gets beat up. I was like, I might start putting stickers on it and stuff. I'm okay with that. The thought process for every single zipper and placement and latch, all of that stuff is just perfectly aligned for the way that I travel and the things that I need and bring with me, that I was like, oh, this is it. This is it for sure. They do not feel the most sturdy. I think any kind of hard shell case that like has to like crease in the middle inherently feels a little janky unless you go with like an aluminum case. And there's some very nice, but if you get an aluminum case bag, they scuff up really bad. And also they're very expensive. But like the Away is like essentially a luxury suitcase for like middle class prices is what it feels like to me.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for the Louis Vuitton to go on sale. I'm trying to get a set.
Well, you know who endorses that suitcase?
The Away one? Marquise Brownlee?
Conan O'Brien.
And
he does travel.
He does. He will travel.
Yeah. Anyway, Kaplan, what you got?
So there's this movie on Netflix, the Extraction movies. Do you know them? They're with Chris Hemsworth.
Those are like they're $100 million movies that no one has watched. Yeah. That's what I know about them.
Except for everyone is watching. When I say everyone, I don't mean us.
I actually don't think that they rate well. I think that like they're
why would they make a second one?
Because of like dumb deals. Like they're like a punchline on the town for that reason. Like people don't watch those movies. Am I conflating with them? Because I know Netflix has made a lot of expensive movies.
Are you talking about Old Guard that people didn't watch the second one as much?
It's in the same sentence as Old Guard. Yeah.
I think Extraction 1 did. I think both of these movies did.
I could be wrong, because your point was my people do not watch those movies.
Right.
That could be true. Yeah.
Well, so you can watch this clip on YouTube. It's also on Netflix. But Extraction is, they're like nonstop action movies with Chris Hemsworth. Extraction 2 has a one-er sequence that's like 20 minutes long. That is just the most bonkers thing you've ever seen. It's like as bonkers as like one of those like Russian GoPro videos from back in the day. It is so big. Like it starts like in a cave or something, or a tunnel, and goes through a giant prison fight and onto a train. And there are real helicopters that are shot off the roof of the train, and all in one shot. I mean, and it's really seamless. Like obviously you can tell where they can hide some cuts here and there, some whips and some things, but it's so intense. It's so good. The action is just so in your face, and just if you're a filmmaker and you watch this shot, it will break your brain trying to figure out how they got it. So, some of these fight sequence, the old boy fight sequence when it's like, imagine that, but the camera is like right next to him, and for 20 minutes and across like 20 different locations. It's so good. I think it's more impressive than like anything you saw in Adolescence even, it's bonkers. Extraction 2, I landed on it because I've mentioned this before, and I was trying to test out my new sound system. And so it was on the list of movies that have Dolby Atmos that you must listen to. And it's like, just check it out. Extraction 2, one shot, one-er. It's so good.
You know what? I've said it many times. It's a one-er is not a flex to me. You know what's a flex?
A two-er?
That scene, if it had like 5 cuts in it. Just like 5 thoughtful, like just add it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you need to. Like keep it going.
But watch it. Tell me where you feel like it's missing a cut, because they do all the tricks. Like we're outside of a Jeep chase and then we're inside the car, and you don't even notice.
That stuff is awesome. It's so awesome. Yeah.
Now we're in the back seat. Now we're in the front seat.
I bet there's like a little bit of like travel time that they orchestrated because of the one-er of it all. And they probably filled it really well.
Yeah. I mean, it needs to have some ebbs and flows as long as an episode of TV,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's like some of the best stunt choreography. If you like John Wick or Atomic Blonde or like any of those things, but you want to add like layers of explosions and just like insane battles, just check it out. I think it's very impressive.
Sounds very cool.
Okay, well, thanks for checking out this episode. Please email us, let us know what you think. justshootitpod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear if you think our conversation about like sound editing words is helpful at all, or if you'd rather us save that for a Patreon special. I'd love to hear about your thoughts on meeting with filmmakers and DPs and stuff for coffee. And anything else you'd like to tell us, you can DM us on Instagram @justshootitpod. You can DM me. I'm @okaplan.
And I'm @Mr. Matt Mo across all social media. This episode was edited by Kevin O'Yang. Thanks, Kevin. Our social media is done by Lily Bouvier, and you're listening to music provided by the Free Music Archive and the artist, Jazar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.